trust in Jesus' name. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When darkness seems to hide His face, I rest on His unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. My anchor holds within the veil. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He's Lord, Lord of all. We shall come when He shall come with trumpet sound. Oh, may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone, faultless stand before the throne. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He's Lord, He's Lord of all. This Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. And through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. Thank you, Lord. You are Lord over all. And your grace is enough, it's more than I need. At your word I will believe. I wait for you, draw near again. Let your Spirit make me new, and I will fall at your feet. Yes, I will fall at your feet, and I will worship you here in your presence. Your is poured out for all. This is our God. Lifted on high from death to life. Forever our God is glorified. Servant and King, He rescued the world. This is our God. And I will fall at your feet. Yes, I will fall at your feet. And I will worship you here. Yes, I will fall at your feet. I will fall at your feet, and I will worship you here. And freely you gave it all for us, surrendered your life upon that cross. Great is the love that's poured out for all. This is our God, be exalted, Lord, lifted on high from death to life. Forever our God is glorified. Servant and King, He rescued the world. This is our God.
I love this series we're doing at the moment, Heroes of the Faith. And I've been thinking a lot about heroes in my own life and heroes that are around me. I've been thinking about heroes in the Bible that have meant so much to me. I love the story of Samson. He's so strong and he's got a great mission. And God's got a great plan for him, but again and again he fails. But at the very end, it all comes together and he actually fulfills the plan that God has given him. I love the story of Jonah, the reluctant missionary who goes to a land he doesn't want to go to speak to people he doesn't want to speak to because he knows God's grace will reach them. And I love that story. There are so many stories in the Bible that I've learned from and that means so much to me from my childhood and for today. And I remember heroes of the faith as well. Growing up, every single Tuesday night, it was my joy to go down to our local church and it'd be missionary night. And on missionary night, we would do things like pray for the missionaries and hear about fantastic missionaries who are doing fantastic stuff all over the world. These people had given up their homes and their life and everything just to go and reach people in a foreign country. Two of my siblings are actually missionaries in different countries, but we have technology and we can FaceTime each other and we can speak to each other. But in those days, it was a one-way ticket. They would buy themselves a coffin, they would put in their books and their clothes, and they would ship out to a foreign country to tell people about God. I can't imagine being the person that left, not knowing if they were going to come back. And I can't even imagine being the person not home, not even knowing if their loved one was actually ever going to come back. It was a massive thing. These are massive heroes of faith. And I think growing up, this is what I thought heroes should be. Someone who's done something spectacular, someone who's done something so amazing. But actually, my life's a little bit boring and I don't really feel like a hero. I spend my weeks cleaning, washing, going shopping, spending time with the children, and that's really what I do. If you throw in something like going for a walk with friends or going for a meal, that is basically my life. It doesn't feel to me like it's a big hero moment. Yet I want my life to count. I want to make sure that the things I do for God reach people. So where are these heroes in the Bible? Heroes like me who are just ordinary, just doing ordinary things. Growing up, we had a Noah's Ark to play with, and we had some fantastic stories of God's chosen people who did amazing things. But I was wondering if I could find a hero in the Bible who was more like me, and did my type of hero, who I am in the faith, actually count? Would it mean something? So for the last few weeks, I've been looking through the Bible, and I came across this man called Tychicus. Now, Tychicus, I have never heard of. I have been to so many sermons and I've been to so many places, but I've never ever heard of a guy called Tychicus. But as I read more and I listened to more stories on him and I heard more about him and read more about him, I thought, this is a guy I can really connect with. Someone I think that the church today can actually learn from. As our church goes into a new stage and into a new area, I think heroes like this are heroes we need to look at. So what do we know about Tychicus? Well, to my surprise, he's actually mentioned 5 times in the Bible. Someone I've never heard of before is mentioned 5 times in the Bible. And his same characteristics come through again and again and again. In those 5 mentions, it talks about being a dear brother, a faithful servant. It talks about how he wants to encourage the church. It also says how he tells the different churches what's happening back with Paul in prison. He is one amazing hero, and there's 3 things I wanted to bring out. The first thing we read in Colossians, it says he's a dear brother. And I think right now in the church, we need to have some dear brothers. We need people around us who are supporting us and caring for us. So why did Paul in Acts do a big long list of names? And I think the reason he did that big long list of names is this. I think he did it to say to people, it's not about one. It's not just about Paul writing the letters. It's actually about a group of people. It's about us doing it as a team. In our celebrity culture, we like to think of the star, the person who's in charge, the person who gets the autograph, the one who writes the book, the speaker at the front, or the athlete that wins the gold medal. But behind all those different types of people, there is loads of people supporting, caring, putting things in place to make sure that they can reach their goal and be successful. And I think that's why Paul put in the very long list of people in that group. I've been listening to a quite disturbing podcast recently, and it's called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. And in this, in the podcast, it talks about a pastor in America who built a massive church, and as quick as it grew, it fell apart. And Christianity Today are looking to it, going, what as Christians can we learn from this church in America? And one thing, as I've been listening to the podcast, I've learned is this. It was about one man. It was about a superstar and not about a collective. And I believe if we want to reach the people in our world, and if we want to build a strong and healthy church, it hasn't got to be about one person or one situation. It should be about a group of people like us coming together. And I believe that's why Paul said, dear brother. If we want to have a healthy church, we have to look after each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, caring for them, loving them, keeping an eye out for people. When you see someone who's not there on a Sunday, who's feeling down, that if you'd like it would be a brother, you'd go and look after them and care for them. The second thing we read is that he's a faithful minister. Paul was stuck in prison, and he'd been writing letters all over the area. These letters would become foundations in the Christian world, things that we talk about, we read, and we think about every single day in our Christian life. These letters were so important, but if they were stuck in the cell with Paul, then they would never go. They would never go anywhere. No one would ever be encouraged by them. So he needed someone who was faithful to take those letters around. So who did he choose? He chose Tychicus again. He chose him again to say, come on, I trust you. You're a faithful brother. You're a faithful minister, and I trust you to do this. Paul needed someone he could trust, to walk thousands of miles by foot, to be a wise traveler, to use his time carefully, to not be distracted by things, and to be faithfully complete the task that was given to him to do, which is to take those letters to churches. He was not only trusted in that way, and a faithful minister and being a trusted person that Paul trusted to deliver those letters, he was also honest. He was honest in 2 ways. He was honest with money. In Acts, it talks about going on a missionary journey. and taken items to Jerusalem. Now, it wasn't like these days where you could just tap a card and give £10 to a needy area or to a charity. They had to go by foot to town to town to town, to house to house to house, collecting money and items and food to all be brought together that they could take to Jerusalem. That was being trust. That was trust and that was honesty. The other way I felt that he was honest in being a faithful minister was this. Again and again it says that in the verses we read before, it says that Paul was taking him there to encourage the church, and he was taking them not just to encourage the church, but also to say what was happening back with him in prison. He had to talk honestly and truthfully. He had to talk with encouragement. Paul trusted him to go to these places and say an honest account that was going on and to encourage the church where they were. I think as faithful ministers now in our church, we need to be careful how we talk, how we encourage people, how we build the church up and build each other up. And I think that would make us a faithful minister. The final one is fellow servant. Paul, even though he was in prison, still Tychicus came to him and stayed with him and connected to him. Whatever was going on, he was there for Paul and he was there for the early church. It didn't matter what needed doing. He went from being a prisoner with Paul to being a postman of his letters, to an aid worker, to an encourager of the church, and even a peacemaker. And then at the very end, he was actually an interim pastor. Paul actually sent him in Timothy to fill out a placement of being a pastor because Paul wanted to speak to Timothy before he died. And because of that, he sent Tychicus to him. And I think this is important for us as a church now. We need to be not just one thing, but lots of things. You might not say that my gifting isn't in a certain area, but if the church right now needs something happening, then can we stand up and do it? Would that make us a faithful minister and a fellow servant? So finally, my brother told me this week that in McDonald's is the biggest maker and creator and seller of toys. I'm not sure if that's right, but that's what he said. So if I had to make a toy, it wouldn't be a Noah's Ark, and it might not even be a Jonah a whale, but it'd actually be a Tychicus. This is my little illustration of what Tychicus would be. He's got lots of different hats, and he's got lots of different roles, and he has shoes ready to go and reach the people in his area. He was willing to be a servant and to serve wherever it was needed. He was a dear brother to Paul. He was a faithful minister in the church. He was honest, he was consistent, he was reliable. He was a team player, a trusted man, and a fellow servant. He was truthful and he was an encourager. And he prayed for the church. This week has been a quite difficult week for me and my family as my dad passed away. And I was thinking about Tychicus and his characteristics and how he served the church. I thought that was my dad. He was a simple man, but he was faithful. And I think right now in the church, and for me personally, that's what I'm going to try to be. I want to be a faithful servant, someone who turns up when they say they're going to turn up, someone who's willing to do jobs that they don't normally do, because the idea of building the church is way more important than what just makes me feel comfortable. I want to be the person at church that when someone walks in, feels encouraged and uplifted and feels that they are cared for by the community in the church. So today, it might not be the biggest name and it might not be someone you've ever heard of before, but I would encourage you to find out a little bit more about Tychicus and find out if maybe that sort of hero is the sort of hero that you can relate to, because it's the type of hero I could. Someone, just by being themselves, loving people, loving the church, and turning up and serving in any way that they possibly can, could make a massive difference, and that's the hero I want to be.
The splendor of a king, clothed in majesty, at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and time is in his hands. Beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, His Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, oh, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. He's the name above all names, worthy of our praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. And name above is the name above all names. You are worthy of our praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. Is how great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. And all will see how